Before we start, I want you to notice something. Notice how your body feels right now. Not to fix it, not to optimize it, but to just notice. Most of us move through life without ever really checking in, because checking in feels inefficient, like something that you're supposed to do after the important things are handled. That alone should tell us something. If discipline has taught us anything, it's taught us how to override ourselves. And that's what this episode is really about. Because if discipline feels like punishment, if consistency feels like control instead of care, if showing up requires self-threat instead of self-trust, that isn't discipline. That's fear with a schedule. This is Life Uncomplicated, and today we're talking about discipline without cruelty. No one wakes up one day and decides to be cruel to themselves. It happens slowly, politely, and through praise. You're not told you're strong because you didn't rest. You're admired because you pushed through. You're respected because you didn't complain. Pain becomes impressive. And when pain becomes impressive, you don't stop asking whether it's necessary. You assume that it's proof. So when discipline hurts, you don't question discipline. You question yourself. Maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe I'm weaker than everyone else. Maybe this is just the cost of wanting more. But here's the thing. No one names a system that only works when you're hard on yourself. Not a system built for real humans. It's built for endurance, not continuation. Discipline used to be a relationship. You showed up, you adjusted, you stayed. Somewhere along the way, it became a command. Ignore your body. Override your instincts. Do it anyway. And if you don't, that just means you don't want it badly enough. Cruelty slipped in quietly. Not yelling, not dramatic. Just firm. Unyielding. Absolute. And because discipline sounds responsible, we didn't question it. We learned to talk to ourselves in ways that we would never speak to someone we love. We motivated ourselves with fear. We punished mistakes instead of learning from them. We treated exhaustion like it was a character flaw. And if it worked, even briefly, we took that as confirmation. But what actually happened was we confused results achieved under pressure with results caused by pressure. Let me say that again. We confused results achieved under pressure with results caused by pressure. That confusion cost people years. Here's what cruel discipline produces over time: compliance without connection, consistency without presence, success without relief. You keep going, but you're really not there. Your body shows up, your calendar stays full, but something essential pulls back. That's why people burn out after success, why achievement feels hollow, why rest feels uncomfortable instead of restorative. Because rest was never taught as a requirement. It's only a reward. And if rest must be earned through suffering, you'll never feel like you've earned it. And that's the trap. Cruel discipline doesn't fail loudly. It fails quietly. By making life feel like something you have to recover from. Real discipline isn't dramatic. It's steady. It doesn't ask, how much can I tolerate? It simply asks, can I keep going this way? Real discipline is responsive. It notices when something isn't working. It adjusts without shame. It assumes limits are information, not weakness. This is where most people get stuck, because cruelty feels safer than uncertainty. Cruelty gives rules. Gentle discipline requires attention. It requires you to listen. And listening feels less risky when you've been taught that ease means failure. Let me say that again. Hold on. Let me say that one more time because I screwed that up. Gentle discipline requires attention. It requires you to listen. And listening feels risky when you've been taught that ease means failure. Discipline was never meant to be a weapon. It was meant to be devotion. Devotion to what matters. Devotion to what lasts. What doesn't require self-assure. Devotion says, I will show up in a way that lets me stay. Domination says, I will force this no matter what the cost. One builds trust, the other builds resistance. This is why discipline that lasts is almost always quieter. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't need applause. And it doesn't need pain as evidence. It works because it respects continuation. I want to slow this part down because this matters. Life doesn't need to hurt wasn't written as a solution. It was written as a refusal. A refusal of unnecessary suffering. A refusal of the idea that exhaustion equals virtue. A refusal to keep applauding systems that only work if you have to disappear inside them. book doesn't tell you what to do next. It doesn't give you a program. It doesn't demand change. And it doesn't rush you. It just asks better questions. When did effort turn into punishment? Who benefits from me believing this has to hurt? And what would it look like to build a life I don't need to recover from? If this episode felt familiar, not inspiring, not energizing, but recognizable, that's not an accident. That recognition is the work. The book simply gives you a space to sit with it longer. No pressure, no motivation, no proving, just permission. Because you do not need to be cruel to be disciplined. You do not need to suffer to be serious. And you do not need pain to legitimize your life. Life doesn't need to hurt. And once you stop accepting that it does, the way forward doesn't get louder. It just gets clearer.